starvation, genocide, war. These rival cults and groups they'll get funded and they'll kill each other, and just like in Libya. Look what happened. I mean, let's face it. Look, all this stuff happens. These black people come up, black Africans come up into Libya, and they're rounded up like you know, the Jews were rounded up by the Nazis, and they're put in concentration camps. They're tortured, they're murdered, they're raped, they're destroyed. On record. On record. Is anybody screaming about that? Anyone screaming about the CIA having their feet on the ground, orchestrating this whole mess for NATO? Anyone saying that? The Joint Chiefs of Staff? You know? The lies. Over and over again. What, you think Fast and Furious and is a rarity? Is that just like it's so commonplace that it's unbelievable. The CIA have absolutely worked for the Rothschilds to get their control of Libya, helped them to control their central bank, and they continue to do that. It's just unbelievable. It's really you're looking at this whole thing, like, unlike our leaders, you know, at least Gadhaffi, I'll be honest, unlike our leaders, like Obama and Cameron and Sarkozy and those other criminals, Gadhaffi refused to sell his people out. Libya was basically free until now, and certainly was debt-free. Libyans had much that we do not have in the United States, as I mentioned. They had a leader who worked for the people's best interests, not the bankers or their slimy corporations. Libya shared in the wealth of the country, free from the shackles of usury and the Rothschilds' banking interests, without the tyranny of Rothschild control over the issuance of money. Think about this. If we didn't have these, the central bank controlling the issuance of our currency, this Federal Reserve, who call themselves, you know, private, and they have like all these symbols that look like they're a federal organization. For years, there was scamming everybody, thought that it was just part of the government. It's not part of the government. So you can just see the fraud right in the open just by putting these government symbols on the building. It's a private corporation. It is a fraud. Anyway, if we didn't have that, we could all live as wealthy people. We've literally been robbed of trillions of dollars by the Rothschild banksters, and they paid for politicos. It's estimated that in Libya, 30,000 civilians have been killed by NATO's love bombs and its rebel forces in the name of humanitarian assistance. The media is, of course, complicit in demonizing Gadhaffi as a man who actually gave his people freedom and a better life. Anyway, that was my article with some comments in it. I could just see what's going to happen to these people. They're just going to get rounded up, and they're going to put all these, like, opposition movements and create destabilization, which is what they do. And now, of course, we have Syria and Iran. And that whole false flag with the assassination attempt against the Saudi prime minister or whatever. Yeah, they're moving their war front. Yes, President Obama, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, is now involved in 6 conflicts that are looking quick to be involved in into 8 different fronts of war. I guess George Orwell was right by saying war is peace and ignorance is strength. Well, I'm going to play this little piece here that I have from Muammar Gadhaffi's unfortunate situation, and we'll do a little commentary on it, of course.
Muammar Gadhaffi, the dictator who led Libya for more than 4 decades, an eccentric antagonist of the United States for so many of them, is dead. And we do have some gruesome, very graphic photos already circulating of Gadhaffi. This video is being aired on Al Jazeera right now. It shows Gadhaffi after he was taken by rebel forces. And as you see, a very bloody Gadhaffi right there, where there are also some still photos from Getty Images that were circulating just a while ago. You see it right there. That certainly does look like Gadhaffi, although if you look in the upper right-hand corner of that photo right there, it does have a different date.
It does, but people in Libya are seeing these photographs as well to confirm perhaps that he is indeed dead. And he's always had a complicated relationship with us here in the West and America, watching his every move for so long because of his involvement with some of the deadliest terror attacks, especially of the 80s, including the 1988 bombing of the Pan Am Flight 103. We're going to turn to ABC's Christiane Amanpour. Christiane, you were the last Western journalist to speak to him. You sat down with him in February of this past year. Before hearing what you have to say, we want to play a bit of that interview, because that was during the uprising, and you asked him about his future.
Yeah, and he didn't want to surrender.
Yeah, let's hear it.
They love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
But if they do love you...
They will die to protect me, my people.
Well, that's what he thought, but clearly this is not what happened.
Clearly
and
that's
if
not
all
what
these
happened.
reports are to be believed, he may even have been found hiding in perhaps a pipe. It's very Saddam Hussein who was found months after the fall of Baghdad in a spider hole. Now he in his hometown of Sirte. And clearly this is a major deal, because as you said, he has been the villain of the United States for decades. Pan Am 103 before that, being accused of terrorism against Americans in Europe, Reagan bombing parts of Libya, and now with the Arab Spring, the real last sort of lion who the U.S. brought in a no-fly zone against.
Talk a bit
They brought in
about that,
they brought in love bombs.
What
do you mean a no-fly zone? It's an 11 bombs.
It's a different world right now.
It really is, and these people in Libya rose up. Gadhaffi, unlike Mubarak, who stepped down after 18 days, was not going to step down. And in fact, his language, which was so appalling, calling the people against him cockroaches, saying that he was going to go closet to closet and pull them out of their hiding places in Benghazi, that language is what got the French and the British to say, no, we cannot allow a massacre. The United States came on board,
cannot allow
and 7 months later,
these are people that go in there and kill 30,000 people, makes NATO's
came into
troops.
power with the military coup.
Wasn't
a
Gadhaffi
different
killing his
world
own
42
people?
years later there in Libya.
That's right. The challenge, of course, is to have a
Controlled
democratic
opposition.
and
The
free
challenge is
future.
to have
We'll see
controlled
what happens there.
opposition.
I know you're going to be
Good,
reporting all
working,
throughout the day for us.
good,
Thank
efficient,
you.
controlled opposition. Oh, yes. Incredible.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
And our resolve is clear. The people of Libya must be protected.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli?
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth.
It's one of these things that you have to plan almost in secret, because as soon as you say you're going to change over from the dollar to something else, you're going to be targeted. There were 2 conferences on this, one in 96 and another one in the year 2000, called the World Mataba Conference, organized by Gadhaffi. And everybody was interested. I think most countries in Africa were keen.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold. The UK has double that, but 10 times the population.
If Gadhaffi had an intent to try to reprice his oil or whatever else the country was selling in the global markets and accept something else as a currency, or maybe launch a gold dinar currency, any move such as that would certainly not be welcomed by the power elite today who are responsible for controlling the world's central banks. So yes, that would certainly be something that would cause his immediate dismissal and the need for other reasons to be brought forward for removing him from power.
It's happened before. In 2000, Saddam Hussein announced Iraqi oil would be traded in euros, not dollars. Sanctions and an invasion followed. Some say because the Americans were desperate to prevent OPEC from transferring oil trading in all its member countries to the euro. A gold dinar would have had serious consequences for the world financial system, but may also have empowered the people of Africa, something black activists say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
The United States should welcome the self-determination of Africans. They certainly have denied self-determination to Africans inside the United States. So we're not surprised by anything that the United States would do to hinder self-determination of Africans on the continent.
The UK's gold is kept here in a secure vault somewhere in the depths of the Bank of England. As in most developed countries, there's not enough to go around. But that's not the case in places like Libya and many of the Gulf states. A gold dinar would have given oil-rich African and Middle Eastern countries the power to turn around to their energy-hungry customers and say, sorry, the price has gone up and we want gold. Some say the US and its NATO allies literally couldn't afford to let that happen. Laura Emmett, RT.
Yeah, you better couldn't.
Now there's momentum across the globe. The anger at corporate America continues.
Yeah, it does. Wow. That's unbelievable. I mean, the whole thing with Libya. So now does it seem a little clearer to everybody out there what's actually going on? Certainly obvious to me. And that's just a lie that they were afraid that the price of oil the price, if they use gold, that it would go up, because they're all devaluing currencies for this fraud that they've been manipulating with the Ponzi scheme of the credit default swap derivatives and all the other shenanigans Larry Summers and cooked up after Bill Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall in 1998, 2000 actually started happening. So we have this proliferation of fraud and manipulation and consolidation of power, and people are angry, and they really, they really should be. A lot of stuff going on. It's just an awful truth. In fact, the Marine Sergeant, a Marine Sergeant, stood up to a New York police officer to protect the Wall Street protesters. This is from Washington's blog. At the Occupy Wall Street rally in Times Square, Marine Sergeant Shamar Thomas boldly defended the occupiers. He calmly asked the NYPD why aren't they protecting their peaceful protest. The police, of course, ignored him, and then in an epic scene, Thomas approached the line of police officers who held their batons and started denouncing the NYPD's action, shouting, "This isn't a war zone. I've served overseas. That's a war zone. Get rid of your batons and helmets." Good for you, Sergeant. I mean, this is what we have. He must be an oath keeper. Hey, speaking of oath keepers, it was great. The other night, actually, it was I think it was Wednesday night. I was privileged to go to the Southington Police Department in Southington, Connecticut, to have to take part in a meeting on Agenda 21, and it was an anti-Agenda 21 meeting that was put together by Hal Shurtleff, who was the regional director of the John Birch Society, and also, of course, the Oath Keepers, which I am a associate member because I'm not in law enforcement. But the Oath Keepers is a group of retired and current military and law enforcement and other members who have sworn to take an oath to uphold the Constitution and not to disarm the American people or corral the American people into FEMA camps or do any of these things that the laws state that they could. Now, when everyone says you're a conspiracy theorist, they wouldn't do that, they couldn't do that, they'll never do that, then why is it in writing that they will be able to? And they could.